In the year 3271, the stars were silent under the rule of the Kareth Dominion. It had been over a century since the first galactic purge, an event that wiped out entire civilizations, including humanity. The Kareth believed they had cleansed the galaxy of weakness. They ruled without mercy, without fear, and they believed the humans were extinct. But the stars don't forget. Far beyond the edge of Kareth space, near the ruins of a forgotten war, something ancient came to life. The Andromeda Gate, a massive wormhole long thought dead, sparked with sudden energy. Silent for over 500 years, it now pulsed with low, steady signals. The Empire's long-range probes picked it up. The readings were unclear, distorted, but one thing was certain. Something was waking up. The Kareth High Command convened within hours. Their response was swift. A threat to peace, no matter how small, could not be ignored. And so they assembled their greatest weapon, the Superfleet, a vast armada of over 10,000 warships. At its head stood Admiral Therek Zor, a veteran of dozens of conquests, a man known across the galaxy for his cold efficiency. Therek watched the growing fleet from the bridge of his command ship, the Tyrant's Will. His face, carved by years of battle, showed no emotion. "Prepare for jump," he ordered. "We'll burn this signal from the stars. If anything remains, it won't for long." His officers nodded. To them, this was routine, another system to dominate, another anomaly to erase. But far away, in a quiet corner of space where no patrols roamed, a single ship stirred. The Nexus 1 cut through the dark like a silent blade. It was nothing like the heavy, loud warships of the Kareth. Sleek, black, deadly. It moved without sound, without trace. Inside, the hum of power ran through its core, and its crew worked with quiet focus. At its heart stood Captain Alex Voss. He stood on the command deck, eyes locked on the holographic display showing the activation of the Andromeda Gate. His face was calm, but his mind was racing. For most of his life, he had prepared for this moment. "We have confirmation," his comms officer reported. "The Superfleet is en route. Estimated time to contact, 22 hours. Voss nodded. So they took the bait. Beside him, his first officer, Commander Ellen Rourke, spoke softly. "It's a risk, Captain, if they trace the signal back to us." "They won't," Voss said. "They're arrogant. They think we're gone." He looked around at his crew, survivors, refugees, descendants of Earth's last defense line. Trained in secret, raised in exile. They had built the Nexus 1 in silence, hidden in the black void. No one believed they still existed. That was the point. But now, they were done hiding. "We moved to intercept," Voss said. "Stealth systems online. Full battle readiness." Ellen hesitated. "Are we really doing this?" Voss's voice was quiet, steady. "We're not starting a war. We're sending a message." The Nexus 1 activated its engines, disappearing into the black between stars. The crew moved like one body, calm, trained, ready. Back in the Kareth fleet, Admiral Therek stood before his officers as they entered the jump point near the gate. "We crush whatever's there," he said. "No survivors. No mercy." The stars stretched. Space bent. The war had not begun yet. But something had changed in the silence. Humanity had returned. The Kareth superfleet surged through space like a tidal wave of steel and fire. Tens of thousands of ships formed a wall of destruction, each one armed to erase worlds. They moved in perfect formation, a dark sea of discipline and power. At the center of this formation was the Tyrant's Will, the command ship of Admiral Therek Zor. Therek stood at the forward window, his hands behind his back. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The bridge officers worked in silence, reading sensor reports and updating tactical maps. The pulse from the Andromeda Gate continued, steady and unchanging. "It's an old signal, sir," said the sensor officer. "Encrypted in a primitive human code. Weak, but intentional." Therek didn't even blink. "Then it's bait," he said. "But I'll take it." He turned slowly, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. "Humans were weak," he said to the room. "That's why they were purged. If this is one of their last tricks, we end it here." No hesitation. The officers nodded. They had been raised to believe humans were gone. But if any remained, they were insects, pests, not soldiers. "Prepare all ships for contact. Full weapon readiness. Form battle lines," Therek commanded. "We make an example of this." The fleet moved in response, spreading out like a net around the gate. Far ahead, cloaked in silence, the Nexus 1 watched. The ship floated just outside the gate's reach, invisible to enemy scanners. Its hull absorbed light, heat, and sound. To the Kareth, it was just another patch of space. Inside, Captain Alex Voss stood in the center of his bridge. calm, focused. He stared at the growing enemy formation on his main screen. "They're forming siege pattern Delta," said Commander Rourke. "Standard planetary destruction tactic." "They still think this is a simple sweep," Voss said. "Good. Let's keep it that way a little longer." The crew was quiet, focused. They had trained for this for years. Most had never seen a real battle. Some had never even seen a Kareth ship before. But they all knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about survival. This was about return. A young crew member, Ensign Tala, turned to Voss. "Sir, if we fire first, won't it make us the aggressors?" Voss met her eyes. "Only if history is written by them." He stepped forward, zooming in on the enemy fleet. "They brought 10,000 ships to wipe out a signal. That tells us everything. This isn't defense. It's extermination." He turned to his weapons officer. "Arm rail course. Bring stealth drives to Phase 2 drift. Prepare EMP burst for frontal assault." Commander Rourke stepped closer. "Are you sure we should engage? We still have a chance to slip away." Voss didn't respond right away. His eyes locked on the enemy fleet, on the Tyrant's will, glowing red at the center of the formation. "When I was 13, I watched my mother die in the Purge. She sent me away on an escape shuttle while our city burned. I've trained for 20 years to stop this from happening again." He looked at his crew, each one watching him silently. "We don't run. Not today." The room became still. As the Nexus 1 powered its weapons, the Kareth Superfleet detected a sudden spike of energy. "Unidentified output, Sector 7, said the sensor officer aboard the Tyrant's Will. "Visual?" Therek demanded. The view screen blinked. Then, the blackness of space shimmered, and something massive appeared. The Nexus 1. It slid forward from the void like a ghost. Long, sharp edges. A dark, jagged hull with glowing veins of blue energy. Its structure was unlike anything in the known galaxy, both old and new, alien and familiar. The bridge of the Tyrant's Will fell silent. Therek's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Then a voice echoed across all Kareth comms. "Calm. Human. This is Captain Alex Voss of the Human Resistance. You are entering restricted space. Turn back. You won't get a second warning." For a moment, there was only static. Then Therek laughed. He stepped forward, eyes bright with cold fury. "A ghost ship. A bluff. One vessel against an empire." He grinned. "Wipe them out." Every Kareth ship powered up. Turrets turned. Engines flared. The Superfleet began to move in unison. But they didn't know what the Nexus 1 could do. They didn't know that humanity had changed. They were about to find out. The Kareth Superfleet opened fire. From a distance, it looked like a silent storm, thousands of energy blasts, missile trails, and particle beams rushing toward a single target. The Nexus 1 was alone, floating calmly in the dark, outnumbered and surrounded. But it didn't flinch. "Shields to full. Hold position," Captain Alex Voss ordered, standing tall on the bridge. His voice was calm, almost quiet, but every crew member moved instantly. Blue energy flared around the Nexus 1 as its advanced shield system activated. The first wave of fire slammed into the barrier. Light flared. Explosions echoed silently across space. But the ship held steady. "Direct hits on outer shields," said Commander Rourke. "No damage taken." "They're testing us," Voss replied. "Let's give them answers." He stepped forward and pointed at the tactical screen. "Target their long-range carriers. Return fire." The weapons officer nodded. "Firing now." With a deep, rising hum, the Nexus 1 unleashed its first counterattack. The ship's forward rail cores, giant magnetic launchers, fired high-density projectiles faster than light. Invisible to the eye, they tore through space and through the enemy. 3 Kareth ships exploded instantly. Not damaged. Gone. Bridge crews across the Kareth fleet went silent. Their sensors couldn't track the projectiles. Their shields didn't hold. Panic crept in. On board the Tyrant's Will, Admiral Therek Zor stared at the reports coming in. His eyes narrowed. "What kind of weapon was that?" "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer said, voice tight. "Their tech is beyond our readings." Therek's voice turned sharp. "Focus fire. Overwhelm them. They can't stand alone forever." But the Nexus 1 didn't act like a lone ship. It moved fast, faster than any capital ship ever recorded. While the Superfleet adjusted formation, Nexus 1 darted to the left flank. It unleashed a burst of EMP pulses, disabling a dozen enemy cruisers before vanishing behind a cloud of decoy drones. Each drone emitted false signals, confusing Kareth scanners. "Where did it go?" shouted a Kareth captain across the fleet-wide comms. "I've lost visual." Then came the second strike. Missiles with self-learning AI, released from the Nexus One's underbelly, curved and twisted through space like snakes. They avoided standard defenses, dodged point defense lasers, and targeted command centers directly. 2 more Kareth flagships were hit. One broke in half, spinning into the void. On the bridge of Nexus 1, the crew watched the battle unfold with tight, controlled focus. 31 confirmed kills, said Rourke. Minimal shield loss. No hull damage. Ensign Tala looked up from her station. Her voice shook slightly. They weren't ready for us. No, Voss said quietly. But now they know we're real. He looked out at the enemy fleet, which was starting to regroup. Despite the chaos, the Kareth ships were disciplined. They began to fall back into new formations, keeping distance, creating layers of defense. They're learning, Rourke warned. Good, Voss replied. So are we. Inside the Tyrant's will, Admiral Therex stood silently, watching ship after ship go dark on his display. He clenched his fists. One ship, he muttered. One ship is doing this? The room was tense. No one dared speak. Therex finally turned to his bridge crew. We underestimated them. That ends now. He issued a fleet-wide command. Change formation. Focus on perimeter. If it escapes, we lose control of the gate. Deploy anti-cloak drones. Prepare gravity mines. Then he looked at his officer. Open a channel. I want to speak to their commander. On the Nexus 1, the call came through. Voss gave a nod. The comms officer opened the line. Admiral Therex's face appeared on the main screen. Cold. Angry. But curious. You fight like cowards, he said. Hiding in shadows. Striking from behind. Voss didn't blink. We fight smart. You came here to erase us. We came here to remind you that we're still alive. You're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Therex growled. This ends with your ship in flames. Maybe, Voss replied. But if it does, we'll take a piece of your empire with us. And everyone watching will know humans are back. For a second, Therex said nothing. Then the feed cut. The battle paused. Both sides prepared for the next move. Inside the Nexus 1, repairs were underway, but spirits were steady. Voss walked the bridge slowly, checking on each station. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't afraid either. This was just the beginning, he told his crew. They know we're real now, but they don't know what we're willing to do. He looked out at the distant gate, still pulsing. They came here to end us, he said. Now they have to wonder if they'll make it home. Outside, the silence of space stretched around the burning wreckage of a dozen Kareth ships. And in the center of it all, the Nexus 1 waited. The space around the Andromeda Gate was filled with debris. Kareth ships drifted in silence, broken and burning. But the battle wasn't over. The Kareth Superfleet was regrouping, adapting. They were no longer charging blindly, they were learning. Inside the Nexus 1, the atmosphere was calm but tense. Captain Alex Voss stood at the center of the bridge, studying the data feed. They're tightening their perimeter, said Commander Rourke. Forming a triple-layer defense net. No blind spots. They're afraid now, Voss said, not looking away. And afraid enemies are dangerous ones. The crew moved with focus. Systems were being recalibrated. Shields were rotated to absorb a different frequency of attack. Engineering teams checked for microscopic hull fractures. Every movement had purpose. Suddenly, a warning light blinked on the screen. Long-range scans show gravity distortion. Sector 9, Ensign Tala reported. They're deploying mines. Could be trying to trap us. Exactly what I'd do, Voss murmured. He tapped the display, highlighting the sector. They're closing every exit. Rourke frowned. So we're boxed in? No, Voss replied. We just haven't built the door yet. He stepped away from the main console and moved toward the viewing deck. For a moment, he stared out into the stars. His mind drifted back in time. He was 13 when Earth burned. He remembered the red glow in the sky as Kareth ships rained fire down on cities. He remembered the fear in his mother's voice when she strapped him into a shuttle. She handed him a dated chip, sealed, encoded, told him to run, told him never to forget. He didn't forget. That chip had held the remnants of Earth's defense network, AI programs, prototype weapon designs, old deep space navigation codes. The final gift of a dying world. The shuttle had taken him to a hidden colony deep in the Cuirass Belt. Survivors from every destroyed human world had gathered there in secret. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, refugees who refused to surrender. There, Project Phoenix was born. They had spent decades in the shadows, using salvaged tech and ancient blueprints. Quietly, they rebuilt. They didn't want revenge. They wanted a future. The Nexus 1 was the result of that dream more than a ship. It was a symbol, proof that humanity could rise again. Voss opened his eyes and turned back to the crew. "We're not fighting just to win today," he said. "We're fighting to make sure tomorrow still exists." On the Kareth's side, Admiral Therek paced his bridge. His expression was grim. He hated the silence of defeat, hated the unknown. "They've gone quiet," he said. "Why?" "No power surges. No movement," his tactical officer replied. "They're waiting. Then we'll make them move." He gave the order: split the fleet, push them toward the mines, herd them into position. The fleet began to divide, creating a pincer movement with gravity mines at the center. It was a trap, clever, disciplined, and dangerous. But aboard the Nexus 1, Voss had already seen it. "They want us funneled," he said. "So we won't go through the funnel." He brought up the tactical map and pointed to a thin line of debris left by a destroyed cruiser. "Here. It's risky, but we use the wreckage for cover, then launch the phase decoy pods to mislead their scans." "We've never tested that maneuver," Rourke warned. "Then it's a good day for a first," Voss said. The ship moved. Slow at first, drifting naturally toward the expected direction. Kareth's sensors confirmed it. They were taking the bait. Then, in an instant, Nexus 1 changed course. The stealth engines roared to life, silent but powerful. It slid through the debris field, spinning through broken hulls and shattered turrets. Small chunks of metal clanged off the shield. Then came the phase decoy pods. Launched in multiple directions, each pod emitted identical engine and heat signatures. Kareth's sensors went blind. "Multiple Nexus signals," shouted a Kareth officer. "We can't confirm the real one." Therek's jaw tightened. "Fire on all targets." No hesitation. The Kareth fleet unleashed another wave of destruction. But their weapons struck only shadows. The real Nexus 1 was already behind their lines. From the rear flank, Voss struck. Targeting support cruisers and command frigates, he launched a wave of EMP torpedoes. Systems shut down. Screens went dark. Crews panicked. One by one, the Kareth ships stopped moving. The trap they had built had turned on them. Rourke grinned for the first time in days. "We're cutting them apart." "No," Voss said. "We're showing them what it feels like to be hunted." The battle slowed. The Kareth superfleet was still massive. But the damage was spreading. Communications were breaking down. Chain of command was disrupted. And in the center of it all, the Nexus 1 stood untouched. Inside, Voss looked around at his exhausted but steady crew. "We're not finished," he said. "But we've shaken the foundation of an empire." He turned his eyes back to the stars. "And we're just getting started." The Kareth superfleet was in disarray. Their formation, once perfect, once feared, was now broken. Pockets of wreckage floated between scattered squadrons. Ships fired in different directions, confused by false signals. Some captains stopped responding altogether, their systems crushed by electromagnetic bursts from the Nexus 1. And yet, the battle was not over. Admiral Therek Zor stood on the bridge of the Tyrant's Will, watching the chaos unfold on his tactical screen. His jaw was tight. His fists clenched. The comm commander was gone, replaced by a man fighting to control his rage. "This is not possible," he growled. "This is not one ship. No vessel can do this." His officers said nothing. They knew better. Therek stepped forward, glaring at the broken map of his fleet. "How many ships have we lost?" 79 confirmed, Admiral, his tactical officer replied, voice low. "Another 100 are damaged or disabled. Several have gone dark." Therek slammed his fist into the console. "You let a ghost from a dead world humiliate us." Silence followed. Therek turned to his communications officer. "Open the line. I want him again. Now." On the Nexus 1, the call came through. Captain Alex Voss stood quietly as the enemy admiral's face filled the main screen. Therek's expression was different this time. No arrogance. No smirk. Just hard eyes full of frustration. "You are a fool," Voss, Therek said. "You think this changes anything? You're one ship." "One." Alex didn't flinch. "One is all it takes when the truth is sharper than fear. You've killed Kareth warriors. That makes you a criminal. You think the galaxy will follow you?" "No," Voss said simply. "But they'll hear us. And that's enough." Therek leaned in closer. "You're throwing away your life." Voss stepped forward. "You burned my home. My people. You erased us from history. Now we're writing ourselves back in." The transmission ended. Voss turned to his crew. "They're weak now. But they're still dangerous. We make one mistake. We lose everything. Let's finish this clean." Back on the Tyrant's Will, Therek issued his final order. "Pull remaining ships into tri-blade formation. Protect the gate at all costs. If we lose the gate, we lose the sector." The tri-blade was the Kareth's most defensive formation. It hadn't been used in decades. It was built for survival, not offense, a shield rather than a sword. But Voss knew it. They've gone defensive, said Rourke, retreating into a shell. Because they're afraid, Voss answered. Now we show them why. He pointed to the display. We hit their command layer directly. If we take out the tyrant's will, the rest will fold. That ship's well shielded, warned the weapons officer. Then we pierce it, Voss said. The Nexus 1 powered forward, engines humming like thunder held in a bottle. The space between it and the Kareth flagship was full of mines, debris, and active turrets. But it moved like it was born in the void. Turrets fired. Beams sliced toward it. Voss gave the order, full shield rotation. Deploy Tempest Cannon. Beneath the ship's hull, a large circular weapon emerged. It glowed with pulsing light. Then it fired. A shockwave of raw energy surged forward, invisible but deadly. It didn't burn through metal, it collapsed power fields. Several Kareth ships nearby flickered and went dead, their systems fried by the pulse. The path was clear. Voss guided the Nexus 1 straight toward the heart of the enemy formation. Missiles struck, but bounced off shifting shields. Fighters scrambled to intercept but were blinded by the ship's cloaking pulses. Then the Nexus 1 reached firing range. Lock on the tyrant's will, Voss ordered. Fire the rail course. Center mass. The weapons officer nodded. Locked. Firing. 2 silent shots left the rail cannons. A second later, the impact hit. The tyrant's will trembled. Its armor cracked. Fires burst through its lower decks. Life support failed in several sections. On the bridge, sparks flew as consoles exploded. Therek was thrown to the ground. Damage report, he shouted. His crew scrambled. Her shielding compromised. Structural integrity dropping. We've lost engine control. Therek pulled himself up, blood on his face. We retreat. Order all ships to jump away. Activate emergency warp. The command was sent. Across the battlefield, surviving Kareth ships turned and vanished into warp space, scattered, broken, defeated. The once invincible Superfleet was running. On the Nexus 1, a hush fell over the bridge. We did it, Tala whispered. They're retreating. No cheers, Voss said softly. Not yet. Scan for survivors. Help any escape pods we can reach. Rourke looked at him. You're sparing them? We're not them, Voss replied. That's the point. The crew moved into rescue mode. Drones were launched to collect damaged pods drifting in the dark. Voss stared at the display of the retreating ships. This wasn't just a win, he said. It was a warning. To every empire that believes power is permanent. He turned and walked toward his quarters. And a promise. That humanity is no longer silent. Hours later, in distant systems, scattered signals were picked up. Brief. Distorted. But clear enough. A human ship. A human captain. A fleet defeated. The message spread, system by system. The galaxy stirred. Silence returned to the space around the Andromeda Gate. Debris drifted slowly in zero-gravity, twisted metal, shattered hulls, lifeless machines. The Kareth Superfleet was gone. The largest fighting force in the galaxy had retreated. And in the center of that silence hovered a single ship. The Nexus 1. Inside, the crew moved with quiet purpose. No one cheered. There were no loud celebrations. Just deep breaths, shared glances, and silent relief. They had survived. They had won. Captain Alex Voss stood alone on the command deck, staring at the tactical display. The area was clear now. No enemy signals. No incoming threats. But his eyes were sharp. He wasn't looking for danger. He was looking forward. Final system check complete, Commander Rourke reported. Minor hull damage. Engine stable. Shield core will need a full reset, but we're space-worthy. Voss nodded. Good work. Casualty report, 3 injured, no deaths, she added. We also recovered 8 Kareth escape pods. Minimal survivors, but alive. Voss didn't respond right away. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the gate, now quiet once more. They came to erase us, he said. Now we're the ones who get to choose what's next. Later, in the ship's war room, a small group of senior crew gathered. The lights were dim. A large holomap of the Orion arm floated between them, blinking with scattered signals. These aren't just static pulses, the data officer explained. These are real-time responses. Civilian comms. Emergency channels. From human colonies. Voss stepped forward. Where? Everywhere, the officer replied, zooming in. Outer Rim, Curus Belt, even deep space platforms once believed abandoned. They're responding to the broadcast. The battle, recorded by the Nexus 1 systems and leaked moments after the Kareth fleet jumped, had reached far beyond their corner of space. It had become a message. Humans were not extinct. Humanity had returned. Hours passed. The crew rested in shifts. Some walked the halls in quiet thought. Others stared out windows, trying to understand the scale of what they had done. In the med bay, wounded retreated. In the hangars, maintenance crews worked silently. And in the central command core, Voss sat alone. A small screen blinked in front of him. A signal, new, weak, but not from the Kareth. Not from any colony they knew. Rourke entered and paused at the door. "Sir." Voss looked up. His voice was soft. "It's a transmission from Earth." Rourke froze. "Earth is gone." "We thought so," Voss said. "But this code is real. Old Earth signature. Military grade. Unspoofable." He pressed a button. A voice, damaged, distorted by time and distance, crackled through the speaker. "This is Echo Prime. Survivors, hidden. Do not respond. Observation only. If you hear this, the core still burns." The message ended. Silence fell between them. "The core still burns," Rourke repeated quietly. Voss stood up. "That means there are others. We're not alone. And if Earth lives, even in shadow, then this fight has only just begun." The next day, the Nexus 1 left the gate behind. Not in retreat, but in search. It didn't vanish into hiding. It moved toward the stars with purpose. Human colonies, scattered and silent for a century, began sending signals. Some were weak. Some were scared. But they all said the same thing. "We heard you." Across the galaxy, old flags were raised again. Old languages were spoken aloud. History, once buried by fear, began to rise. The name of Nexus 1 spread like wildfire. The name of Captain Alex Voss, the man who faced an empire with one ship, was spoken with awe. He had not come to destroy. He had come to remind the galaxy that humanity would not be forgotten. And they wouldn't stop now. Not until every voice lost in the purge had been answered. Not until Earth stood tall again. Not until the stars remembered who lit them first.